Good morning. So this is section 2, climate and vegetation. Remember to do your vocab. It's been posted since Monday, so do your vocab, and then make sure that you finish that chart from last class. Some classes have done okay, and only 2 or 3 people haven't done it, and some classes 8 to 10 haven't done it. So make sure that you get your stuff, that chart turned in. I gave you the answers in the slideshow underlined, so you should be able to finish that pretty easily. It won't take you but about 5 or 7 minutes. Then this is climate zones of South Asia, or climate vegetation of South Asia. Only thing you're going to have to do today after that is this quiz. It's matching and true false. It'll take you 5 or 6 minutes. If you paid attention to the notes, it's very easy to do. Or you can just use open book. I don't care. Great. So let's look at this. All right. So climate and vegetation here. Climate first. There's 6 main climate zones of South Asia. Remember, South Asia is India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. Okay. 6 main climate zones. You have highland, humid subtropical, semi-arid, arid, and desert, tropical wet, and dry. Highland, remember, changes as you go up and down the elevation. It's mountainous. Humid subtropical is what you live in. Humid subtropical is what Dallas, Sunnyvale, Texas is. Semi-arid means that it's not desert. It gets a little bit more rain than desert, but doesn't get much rain. It usually borders a desert. Arid is a desert. We should know what that means. Not much vegetation at all. Tropical wet means that you get rain year round. Lots of rain, usually found along that equator line, or close to the equator and next to the coast, or wet areas. And then tropical wet and dry usually is found next to tropical wet. They kind of border tropical wet and dry. Borders tropical wet. It gets a rainy season and a dry season. All right, so let's look. So you have highland is the coldest climate, obviously. Okay, think about the top of Mount Everest. It's going to be very, 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 very cold. It's usually found along these northern mountains here. So up here, the the Karakoram Mountains, the Hindu Kush Mountains, and Mount Everest are the Himalayas mountains. So that's it's cold at the top. So the top can be very cold. The bottom in the river valleys can be lush forest. So that just changes as you go in elevation. You have humid subtropical is in the Indo-Gangetic plain. Humid subtropical means right here where the Indus, Ganges, kind of that plain is. Here's the Indus. Here's the Ganges. So it's right here across the middle. That's the humid subtropical. Humid subtropical is what you live in. You should know what that climate's like. And then you have semi-arid is on the western edge of the Indo-Gangetic plain and next to that plateau at the bottom part of India. And then you have the desert, which is on the west of India, the east side of Pakistan. That's the Thar Desert is the driest place in this region. Is this Thar Desert in India? It's right here. So you have semi-arids right here, borders the desert. But here's that western edge of the Indo-Gangetic plain. You also have it here on the Deccan Plateau, which is the top of that plateau that doesn't get as much rain because remember, this Deccan Plateau blocks some of that moisture. So this gets all the moisture. This doesn't get as much. And then you have it over here in western Pakistan, and then the desert's kind of a lot of Pakistan is desert, and West India is desert. That Thar Desert. And the last two is tropical wet and dry. It's the western coast of India, eastern coast of India, and Bangladesh. And tropical wet and dry is southern India and northern Sri Lanka. And so you can see here, tropical wet is here. A lot of the rain. We'll talk about why here in just a second. And then right here. as well. Most of Bangladesh is tropical wet, so it's very lush there. Tropical wet and dry kind of borders that area here. Gets a little less rain. All right, so let's go to the monsoon. The monsoon is one of the most important climate features of South Asia. And a monsoon is not, a lot of times when we think of the word monsoon, we think of a storm. Monsoon is not the storm. The monsoon is the wind that brings either dry or storms. So it shapes the continent. So you can see here, you have a winter monsoon. Between October and May, the wind, the winter monsoon, blows the air from the north, and it blows it this way. So you have air coming from the north down to the south. And so what's north of India is more land, cool land, the mountains, cool air. Russia is way up here. So you have this cool, dry air coming from the north. And so between October and May, this winter monsoon brings cool, dry air from Europe and Asia. Then you have the summer monsoon. This is where we kind of get the picture of a monsoon being a rainstorm, because the summer monsoon, June or September, the air blows up from the equator and from the ocean. So it's warm, it's got lots of moisture, it brings lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of rain. So it blows here, coming this direction. The winter monsoon comes this direction, the summer monsoon comes this direction. So you can see here, monsoon as the rainfall is the very heaviest in eastern parts of South Asia and the bottom part of uh, India, bottom left side of India. Shillong sometimes gets 450 inches of rainfall a year. So you can see here, this is a rain chart. I know this looks very confusing, but the blue means you get lots of rain. The yellow means you get not as much rain or none at all, less than 10 inches. And so everything in between. So you can see here, the monsoon blows up here. The monsoon comes and blows this direction. This area gets lots of rain. Why is this area so dry? Remember, that's a higher area. That's that plateau. So that moisture is blocked by that high plateau, those Ghats, the Western Ghats. And so that's why this area is drier. But then it goes over here, and that summer monsoon is blowing wind up this direction. There's nothing to block it here. This is a very low area. And so this area gets tons and tons and tons and tons of rainfall as well. That's where Calcutta is. So the rainfall is brought by the monsoon is very critical for the people's survival. So people can need it to grow crops. That's grow a lot of things in India need rain, lots of rain, and so they wait for those things. So they live for that. But also the monsoon brings life, but also it can bring death because of flooding and cyclones. Cyclones are these violent storms with very heavy winds. A cyclone storm is almost like a hurricane. They don't call them hurricanes in this area. They call them typhoons. But cyclones doesn't have that like spinny thing that a tornado or a hurricane has, but it has very, very high winds and lots of rain. So it causes a lot of flooding in these, especially in the low-lying areas here. Gets lots of flooding, and that causes lots of death and destruction. All right, and then the last part here is the vegetation zones in South Asia. You can see here most of South Asia is a tropical grassland. Most of India is tropical grassland. So you get lots of grasslands in that semi-arid and tropical wet and dry and tropical wet areas. But you get a lot of forest too. Very large forest in tropical wet. Obviously, it's like a rainforest. You get lots and lots of rain, lots of sun, and so that's going to be this tropical wet areas are going to have very lush, dense forest like a rainforest. You have in Nepal and Bhutan up here, you have on the edge of mountains, you have like pine and you have some pine forest up there that have forest there. And then in the river valleys, you have some forest down here in the river valleys as well. Deciduous forest. I'm sorry, deciduous forests are here. Because of all these forests and because some of these nations are really poor, you have a problem with deforestation because they need money. And also India, in India's case, they need living land for all the 1.5 billion people that live there. So they have to cut down trees for land and building supplies. And semi-arid and tropical wet have grasslands with fewer trees, and deserts have not much at all. All right, that's it. So make sure you do this quiz, and then we'll go over chapter 24-3 notes on Friday, and your vocab quiz will be posted on Friday as well. So if you have any questions, just let me know.